Terry, I love the section in your book, The Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice, on raising money and creating investor partners. The first thing you say is, in quotes, you might prefer that I start out by telling you that it's easy to buy your first commercial property without money or experience. But I'm not here to tell you this. So please go into why you're shooting this concept down.
Well, let's think about it. Okay, so if you're going to say this, like you're to go up to a potential investor and tell them, hey, I want you to take $50,000 that you have worked hard to save and give it to me for on-the-job training to buy $1 million apartment building. And in exchange, I will give you a 10% return. Oh, and by the way, I'm certainly not going to risk any of my money. I'm planning on getting rich using other people's money.
Right. Okay, so when you put it that way, nobody's going to go for that. So how does a beginning sponsor get started to raise capital?
Okay, and that's what this episode is going to be all about. I'm going to go over the 7 cutting edge components of raising money from investors and lenders for beginners. And at the end, I will share the number 1 pitfall to avoid that more often than not attacks even experienced deal sponsors and kills their deals in about the 11th hour. I've seen this happen many times.
Hello and welcome to the Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice channel, where we give insider tips on over 500 real estate topics from the book, The Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice by Terry Painter. Terry is a writer for Forbes.com and the president and founder of the Apartment Loan Store, where he has financed over $4 billion of commercial loans over the past 24 years by matching each deal with over 40 of the top funding sources in America. So, Terry, what advice do you have for beginners who want to buy their first apartment building but need to raise capital?
Okay, Kriya. Well, what I want to do is start out by saying that it's much easier to raise funds from passive investors who just want to make money on their money. They really don't have any interest in running the property, even knowing that much about it. They just want to make sure their money's coming in. To use totally passive investors, you will need to do a syndicated transaction, which is regulated by the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission. I'm not going to take the time to go over all the rules and everything that's involved with that in a syndication. I will in my next video. But I can assure you that this is just not something you really want to do if you're just starting out. I'm going to recommend that instead you form a simple LLC for your first deal where all of your partners that are contributing funds have a small role in the overseeing of the property. Okay, so let's go over the 7 cutting edge components for raising capital from investors and lenders. Cutting edge component number 1, being able to fake it until you make it. If you don't have the experience owning an apartment building, you want to come across like you do. You need to memorize the numbers and be able to present exactly why this property is going to be a winner. You not only have to sell your credibility to investors, but also to listing agents and lenders. Study commercial real estate due diligence and be able to pepper your delivery with real estate jargon like cap rate, cash on cash return, internal rate of return, and so on. You can find all this in my book or many other books or even YouTube videos like this one. Okay, so you need to hype up your amazing accomplishments with maybe you've owned some single family rentals or a duplex or something that's close to an apartment building. Maybe you fixed and flipped a property. If you do not have any of this experience, you're going to have to extrapolate from accomplishments in your life and talk about yourself as an experienced leader.
Okay, so you're saying that you should study the property's financials and then just act like you know what you're doing and just stretch the truth about having the experience?
Okay, it might have sounded like I was saying that, but that's not really what I meant. What I'm saying is that you need to act with confidence. And if you have picked a great property, being able to explain clearly with excitement why that property is so fantastic. I can't tell you how many times newbies who needed financing got their foot in the door with me just by talking the talk and walking the walk. If they combine that with a great property and knowing the numbers, they sure got my attention.
Okay, so I think it'd be helpful if you could give an example of where a newbie got their foot in the door with you.
Okay, I'd love to do that. Um, okay, well, in 2004, a 34-year-old LAPD officer named Kelly Fabris called me to say she was quitting the force to buy a 164 unit, $6.8 million apartment building called Riverwalk in Wichita, Kansas. And she asked me if I could finance the property. She was so magnetic and so excited about this deal that I just couldn't put the phone down. Even better, she knew the numbers and talked about the market rent comparables that proved the rents were under market. Then she sold me her property management skills. I was hooked on Kelly and this deal. So I went on to pre-qualify her. Well, she only had a single family rental that she owned and 2% to put down. What was she trying to pull? I told her she didn't qualify and that she should buy something she could afford and had the experience to manage, like a duplex. Well, she told me I was insulting her and that the Wichita property was the one she was going to buy. It's amazing what you can get done if you just don't know you can't do it. That's what Kelly's MO is. The thought that she was over her head just did not occur to her, through the entire process. She had the confidence and had taken this course called Maui Millionaires that taught her how to raise investors. Well, she brought in a high-powered executive from Intel, her parents, and some mom and pops, and came up with a down payment. Boy, she had my attention when she did that. Then we had fun doing the due diligence and putting the deal together. And she closed on that property and went on to repeat this over and over and became a multimillionaire. Okay, so let's go on to cutting edge component number 2. You can raise at least 10% of the capital. You need to know you can do this. This will give you clout. Lenders will want you to have some skin in the game, and every investor is going to ask you, well, how much are you putting in? Do you really want to tell them zero?
Well, even 10%, only 10% is enough.
Well, I would like to see 15 or 20%. That would be even better. But 10% can sometimes get you off to a start. I don't care how you raise this money. It can come from a HELOC or a loan from your parents or even from your best friends. But you've got to have that money secured in a bank account before you talk to a lender or talk to investors. Okay, here's cutting edge component number 3. Find a dynamite property. This should actually be cutting edge number 1. This property needs to sell itself by having these 6 upsides to get investors and lenders really excited about participating. Always remember that excitement sells. It's going to take a lot of work, but you absolutely have to find a property that has these 6 qualities. Number 1, it's in a good neighborhood. Number 2, proof that the rents can be increased because they are either under market or with inexpensive value adds, you could get the rents up. The property or your bank account can cash flow the loan. That's number 3. That's really important. You have to get number 4. You have the property financials. This means the current rent roll and at least 2 years of historical profit and loss statements. Number 5, you have completed a 5-year pro forma that shows, based on facts, that the cash on cash contributed to the deal can be doubled in 3 to 5 years. Your investors are going to want to know that. And you also want to show that your NOI, your net operating income, keeps going up over time. This will help with lenders. Okay, and number 6, you have a good understanding of the property condition.
Okay, so what do you mean that the cash the property earns or your bank account has to cash flow to the loan?
Okay, well, it's simple. It's just so much easier to get a loan and raise investors if the property already has the net operating income to make the loan payments. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
And if it doesn't, that you have the cash to make up the difference. Lenders don't really like to lend you money for the loan payments. That's kind of against what their business model is. So if you could have some extra cash until your value adds kick in and bring in the raised rents, you should plan on raising some extra capital for a rainy day fund. Okay, so let's get on with cutting edge component number 4. Have an experienced team. We're talking about number 1, a partner that has the experience and money. If you don't, they're going to need to be a key principal on the loan. Number 2, a good property management company. Most lenders are not going to be excited about you managing this property if you don't have any experience doing this. Number 3, an excellent contractor with a good reputation that can give you a reliable bid if there's renovations that are going to be needed. Number 4, a great real estate attorney that can watch your and your investors' backs.
Okay, so if you don't have any experience or much money, you're saying to bring in a partner that does have this. What if you hate partnerships? And won't a strong partner like this mow you over and just take charge of the deal?
Well, that's a good point, Kriya. But sorry, if this is your first deal, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. You will need to protect yourself by making it clear to an experienced investor that you're going to bring on as a key principal that they cannot hijack your deal. You want to be the managing partner. And that's really important. And you can get that clear to them. And if they don't agree to it, you're going to find somebody else. In order to qualify for the financing, though, this individual is going to probably have to have a strong net worth. And just think about them being your mentor. This is just your first deal. After that, on your second deal, you could get by without an experienced investor and do it yourself. Okay, so let's move on to cutting edge component number 5. Create an outstanding executive summary. This is going to be used to sell the deal to lenders and investors. This is your business plan and describes the location and amenities of the property and your hold and sell or refinance strategy. This summary needs to be concise, ideally no more than 5 pages. It's going to describe the property, the sales price, how much the improvements will cost, and your planned financing. You need to show what the property is worth today, and after you put in your value adds, what it will be worth down the road when you raise rents. As soon as you can, you want to entice investors with the returns they're going to get on their investment. The equity multiple is the best way to sell this to investors. This metric tells investors how much their cash is going to increase over so many years. Okay, for example, an equity multiple of 2 means that your investors are going to double their cash invested. And lastly, a summary of the property financials and bios of your team should be in this executive summary. Okay, let's move on to cutting edge component number 6. Apply for the right loan the first time. This is so important. In my book, I talk about the 7 pre-qualifications that all commercial loans have. They are the quality of the borrower, the quality of the income of the property, the location, the tenant quality, lease quality, and property condition. And all it takes is for one of these to not qualify and your loan is not going to close. So be sure to screen the lender to make sure you and your group qualify for all these terms and conditions. Just so you know, in my book, I have 18 loan programs highlighted that spell out lender terms and borrower qualifications. Okay, so here's the last cutting edge component, number 7. Rehearse your pitch for investors and lenders. Become an expert at selling returns and risk to investors, and based upon facts, why your business plan for these properties will succeed. Be sure to rehearse this presentation in front of your spouse, your best friends, your kids, or even your dog. You want to be over-prepared.
Well, that sounds like me. I can get a little bit obsessed with being over-prepared. So what is this terrifying pitfall that even experienced deal managers fall prey to that kills their deals?
When raising investors, more often than not, one of them doesn't wire the funds prior to closing. Human beings are not the most reliable force in the universe and often change their minds if there's too much time involved. So it makes sense to raise more funds than you need and have a deadline when participation ends and all contributions are put into an escrow account. And be sure to put into writing that the funds are not refundable unless something happens like you don't get the financing.
Okay, that sounds like great advice. As usual, Terry, you have written an article on everything that we've covered in this episode. Uh, can you share the URL for this article in case our viewers have not been taking really good notes?
Sure, you could go to this URL below. And this article is long, but it does cover absolutely everything that we've talked about today.
And if you've liked this episode, don't be shy. Give us that thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And if there's something specific that you would like Terry to do a video on, let us know. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.